I have written, we were actually having a little count up the other day because somebody asked me that question, and we made it 96 books in all. And I've written 2 or 3 different series for Usborne. My most recent one, Spires. They like to call it School Friends. That's the proper series title, but I prefer to call it Spires. And I've written Ballerina Dreams as well, and also one solo book, one standalone book, Billy and the Parent Plan. No, I didn't have the conscious thought that I wanted to be a writer, but now I look back, I think maybe I did, if I'd realised that that was a kind of a career and a possibility. Well, I wanted to be a ballet dancer. So it is wonderful that I've come round to being able to write Ballerina Dreams and all that. Ballet was my thing. I absolutely lived and breathed it and adored it. The way forward for me now is different from the way forward before. I used to just catapult myself into it and get on with the writing and sort of get through the pain barrier right at the beginning and see what happened and let my characters take me there. And I still do that to an extent, but I do write an outline and then develop it more and more and more into a synopsis. And that process is just helping me sort of sink the whole feel of the book and the characters and so on. The moment I'm writing, my characters just take over for me, and I just don't feel as though I'm writing anymore, because I write, I suppose, in the first person nearly all the time, apart from books for little children. And if I do write in the third person, I'm still following one main protagonist rather than writing from the multi-viewpoint. So I'm in it, I'm absorbed in the process, and the moment I'm in it, it takes over and it does it for me. And I actually look forward to the next day's writing in the same way that you would if you're reading a book and you want to see what happens next. I think that anybody who passionately wants to be a writer can be a writer, or anybody who doesn't realise that that's a possibility, like me, but is always writing, and anybody who has a big imagination. I think it's difficult to say whether or not writing can be taught. In many ways, the national curriculum is quite constraining, so for teachers, it's difficult for them to inspire, and I think that the only way that it can be taught, or it can be learnt, I think it can be learnt by different forms of inspiration, but everything is just an absorbing of inspiration which will then give you the creative splurging for the outward process of the writing. I think you need to read a lot if you want to write well, and when you've written your own thing, read it out loud to somebody. It's quite a painful process. I often read my stuff out loud, and it throws up in big glaring lights everything that I've got wrong. But I think the most important thing is to realise that every child, every single child and every person in the whole world perceives things differently. I know sometimes children sort of sit at a desk and feel completely despondent because a teacher has said, I want you to write a story about, I don't know, a haunted castle. And they think, well, where am I going to get that from? But you can turn almost anything around to your own perception, to something that's happened to you. It's so much more, I think, about feelings than about the actual subject that you're writing. I get my inspiration from everywhere, from all around. You know, when I do author talks, children often ask me that question, where do you get your ideas from? And I say, well, I get them from the ideas factory, obviously, and then I go on and tell them this little poem. I'll try and say it, but I'll probably forget it. The factory is miles away in central ideas land. You you go inside, you meet the guide, you go inside, he always shakes your hand. He asks you what you're looking for, you say, I've no idea. He says, that's fine, just follow me, we've loads and loads in here. He shows you around, you look on every floor, you fill a dozen trolleys up and then a dozen more. You load the trolleys in your van and then you have to pay. It costs a fortune, I'm afraid, but there's a cheaper way. Just take ideas from all around and keep them in your heart. Then when you want to write a book, you've got the perfect start. I think everybody's background influences their writing. I think your background is the essence of yourself in terms of the people and the places and everything that you've ever done. And however hard we try to escape that, I think we writers write about ourselves in all our characters all the time. I'm a huge Roald Dahl fan. The Witches really inspired me. I love things which are just off the real world. So the real world is absolutely there, anchoring them. But, you know, I took my daughters to see The Witches and we found ourselves looking for ladies in gloves on the way out. When I was very young, Ellen Montgomery inspired me more than anybody. Anne of Green Gables, I read 17 times. I absolutely adored that book, and Anne was a chatterer like me. I kind of major on emotions and families and problems and issues within that context, and then sorting them out, but not with a ribbon on the top, perhaps in a more thought-provoking way. I think there's nothing better than actually completing your first draft. That is the most wonderful feeling, very difficult to explain to anybody who's not a writer, because you've created something, and it's actually such a relief because you go hurtling towards the finishing line, and then you've done it. There's always loads more work to do, but at least you've done that first draft. I try to capitalise on my morning brain, and my morning brain works really, really well if it's very, very early in the morning, and if I've just done something quick and oxygen grabbing, like a 5-minute jog around the block. I count the number of steps just to sort of get it over with, and then go straight into my office and start writing. If I'm writing a book, so if I'm in a book, I will make sure I write every single day, definitely, so I don't just lose the flavour of it and the feel of it. Well, I'm writing Spires and have been doing for the last 2 or 3 years. That's been the most wonderful series to work on. I really know all the 12 girls, 6 girls from the first series and the 6 girls in the second series. And at the very end, I've allowed them to meet up, even though the 6 girls from year 7 in the first series are now in year 8. I'm allowing them to meet up. And if there are no more girls, I shall really miss this series, and I shall really miss those girls. I've written a short story for the Usborne Young Writers Award. I'm really looking forward to having a look at some of the finished stories from the young writers. Well, the Usborne Young Writers Award is celebrating 5 years of fiction, and I've been involved right from the start with Usborne, which has been absolutely wonderful.